It is a true honor and a rare privilege to be in conversation with someone who, by the virtue of her life, by the virtue of her work, has redefined what it truly means to aim high. A trailblazer, a legend whose legacy might have been etched in space, but it has been felt right here, where she's inspired millions of young lives to think that even sky is not the limit. Like I said, it is an honor to be in conversation with Captain Sunita Williams, who retires after 27 years in service to NASA, where today we celebrate her work, her life, her legacy. The announcement of your retirement is coming when you're in India. Are you done with space exploration?
The next chapter for me is more about family.
An 8-day mission turned into a 9.5-month mission. When you were docking and the 5 thrusters gave up, was there a sense that, Houston, we have a problem?
It's overwhelming. The enormity of the problem, it gets you a little bit scared.
Speaking about the hair, you had quite a few good hair days.
Yes, I did.
In space, didn't you? Something which the President of the United States also noticed.
The lady with the crazy hair, I think something like that.
Yeah, the lady with the crazy hair, we are bringing you back. We have Gaganyaan happening.
Yep.
How are you looking at India's space journey?
This is the time. This is a golden age of space exploration for everybody around the planet.
Have you watched Interstellar?
I've watched part of it. It's a long movie.
Yes. I know you're exhausted. I know you're back to back with interviews. And I know I interviewed you yesterday. I asked you a ton load of questions, but thank you so much, Captain Sunita Williams, for sitting here and doing this again with us.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Particularly, it was on the heels of the talking to all the kids at the festival. It was really nice.
No, it's a rare privilege. And, with all puns intended, I'm literally over the moon to be doing this with you again. And I just would want to begin with the fact of you retiring, 27 years. And, before all of this, I want to ask you, how would you introduce yourself to our listeners, to our audiences?
That's
Captain Sunita Williams had to introduce herself because you're used to very rich introductions wherever you go.
Yeah.
And, and yesterday I read out a full sheet of that. So I'd like you, if you can introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers, what would you say?
Oh, wow. I would say hi. My name is what my mother used to call me, Sunny Williams. I'm a former Navy helicopter pilot and just retired from NASA as a NASA astronaut.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's where I would go.
That's where you'd go. I just want to take.
I think other things I would probably say is I used to be a competitive swimmer and I love animals. Those are some of the key characteristics about me.
I just would want to add that the kind of records that you've made, 27 years in service with the NASA, and I want to read this out because 3 missions to the International Space Station, 608 days in space, 9 spacewalks, over 62 hours in open space, the most by any woman in history, and also running a marathon, which is the Boston Marathon in space. And there's so much more. When you close this chapter, and as you retire today, as you hang up your astronaut suit, Captain Williams, I want you to take a minute to possibly reflect on what this journey really was. Also, is there serendipity in it that the announcement of your retirement is coming when you're in India because your origin, Indian origin, and most of us back home feel that we have a bit of stakeholder in your life and career and how it's panned out.
Wow. I'm excited about retirement for one thing because I feel like it was a good time to leave. The chapter that I lived in for NASA, it was building and working on the International Space Station, and we're coming to the next chapter for NASA. And the next chapter is going back to the moon. All the work that we've done on the International Space Station, I think, is helping us inform our decisions as we make new spacecraft. Think about sustainably living on the moon and how we're going to maybe build a place where people could be there on the moon for a long period of time. All of the data that we have gathered over for the space station, 25 plus years, and that includes all the buildings, that's my whole career, will help inform that next generation of explorers and exploration. I feel like the people who are participating in the space agencies and the space program, the one generation younger than me they have, the steering wheel, and they're ready to go and make history. I think also we're at a point where we're really inspiring the next generation who is out there at the festival today, all the kids, and they're getting excited because this is now a thing that they see on the news pretty regularly. People from all over the world who have gone to the International Space Station, so people can identify with other people. Me, of course, is half Indian, so people in India, identify me. But Captain Shukla, who just came back on an Axiom 4 mission, of course they can identify with him. So this is really a great time for people all over the world to take a look at space exploration, how they can be involved, and how it makes us work together as humans and humanity.
Captain Williams, are you done? Are you done with space exploration? That when you retire, you're okay. That chapter's over.
I'm okay with that. I think obviously there's going to be opportunities like this where I can try to inspire the next generation. Obviously, there'll be some opportunities where maybe somebody would ask for my opinion about how some program or some spacecraft or something we did in the past, and I hopefully most of that is already documented, and so we've have a path for that information flow, but I'm always available to help out. But the next chapter for me is more about family and spending more time with my family on my timeline, and I think that's really important. And at some point in time, you got to do that.
At the back of what has been a remarkable career, Captain Williams, and a trailblazer, a legend where your legacy was etched in space, but the impact of it is felt right here. You've been speaking to a lot of kids, and I'm sure you understand, what you've really given them, and that is to think that even sky is not the limit. How important is it for you to inspire these young kids today?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason we do what we do. When you see the next group of people taking over and doing what you're doing even better, or just even relating to, like maybe some 5 or 6 year old and putting, myself in their shoes and having that discussion with them so they could see themselves in the things that I have accomplished. Those accomplishments are not totally extraordinary. They can be obtainable by anybody who puts their head down and just sort of drives for a goal. And I want kids to recognize that and realize that I am not something that's like magical. I'm just one of them, and that's I think the main goal of having these conversations with kids, and also the technical work that hopefully we've laid the groundwork for. Like I was mentioning, the next steps in exploration.
For us back home, you are a bit magical. And a lot of us, I remember at the India Today newsroom, which I was telling you earlier as well, we held a watch party.
Yeah.
When your capsule, SpaceX Dragon, was splashing down, it must have been about 4:30 or 5 in the morning in our, newsroom. And everybody actually gave each other a high five and heaved a sigh of relief. And, the dolphins swirled around it.
Yeah.
That image was magical. And I, the question that I want to ask you at the back of that is, do you understand what you really mean to people in India when they look up to you and they followed your career, and it's they feel that they own a part of Sunita Williams?
It's very humbling, and I'm very honored to have people tell me this. It's sort of hard to actually put your arms around and understand that, honestly, like because I know that I know how I live my life. Just try to do the right thing, and like I feel like I don't have any extraordinary skill. I just sort of put my head down. So it seems for me it's a little bit hard to really put my arms around that. But at the same time, I take that responsibility on. Like I know that some kids see me as a role model, and I need to be serious about that. As a role model, you need to live your life in that manner, and share your experience. I think that's really important as well. Share that experience, and so other folks can be part of it, and it's not just like some idol that other folks can't be part of. So I want to interact with people. That makes that it forces me even more to want to do that.
I know you've answered this a million times over in multiple press conferences, but allow me, and I'm sorry, but humor me for 2 minutes. And I want to take you back to a journey which was because you've done 3 space missions. There is one that has gotten enormous amount of attention, and that is when an 8-day mission turned into a 9.5-month mission. Um, you were on a spacecraft, the Boeing Starliner, for the first time. and you knew there were going to be issues with it. But when you were docking and the 5 thrusters gave up, was there a sense that Houston, we have a problem?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is something we had not planned for, something that's not in our book. You don't read about 5 thrusters failing. You just deal with it, right? So there was a lot of conversations with the folks on the ground because obviously they have a little bit more data than the spacecraft can handle. So they have a little bit more data. So they were a little bit more informed than we were. They were running through there. Then there's more people down there too who are experts on this particular system. The engineers, the technicians who put it all together. So they're all putting their heads together at that period of time to figure out what the next plan of action was. And, so there's a moment in time you're like, okay, I hope we can still have a communication with the ground because we know that we trust and know those people down there are going to come up with some game plan. In the meantime, though, we might lose communication. That's always a threat, and it's called no radio Nordo. And so we have Nordo procedures to be predictable so the ground knows where we are and what we're doing. And, Butch and I look at each other, we're like, okay, here we go. The thing that we wanted to do was attempt to dock to the space station. And while we're doing that, look at the controllability of the spacecraft. And, I was talking about this yesterday. It's a big problem, but how do you solve big problems? One little bite at a time. So our, our first thought, our action is it would be best to dock to the space station, hoping this spacecraft is controllable. Let's give that a shot. If that doesn't work, we'll get to a safe place away from the space station and we'll tackle the next problem. So it's step by step by step. Um, Another example for a lot of people who watch movies is The Martian. If you watch the Martian movie, that gentleman was challenged with huge, huge technical issues, and it's overwhelming. And obviously, when there's time and you can sit back and realize the enormity of the problem, it gets you a little bit scared. But the way to tackle it is like one little piece at a time. Let's just handle this right now. Let's see how this is going to go. You don't really have time when you're handling that one little piece to get scared because you're focusing on that technical capability. So
You talk about films, and have you watched Interstellar?
I've watched part of it. It's a long movie.
Yes.
So I haven't watched the whole thing. So I do need to go back and watch it because it's been recommended a number of times to me. Yeah.
With whatever little bit you watched, did you see any similarities at all?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
There's problems, and you handle them piece by piece by piece, and there's a human aspect of that also, right? So I think we want to maintain our relationships with people, and you don't want to explode or have an get aggravated and stuff because that doesn't really help solve the problem.
Was there a sense, and I'm not going to ask you more about this, that when you looked across to your colleague, Butch Wilmore, they, was it true that you guys could have just drifted away if those thrusters didn't come back?
There's there was a if we had got to that point, there's a possibility that the thrusters wouldn't work as advertised. We have them in different orientations. And the thought that, Butch and I had talked about this afterwards, what was going through his mind is how do we turn the spacecraft and use the thrusters that we have to do what we need to do? So it's not an absolute that, yes, it would have been, the end or terrible or anything like that. We would have worked on trying to figure out how to fly the spacecraft. We were really lucky because we had, to call it lucky, we had a number of years to understand the systems and work with the spacecraft beforehand and try out different things. And so flying the spacecraft in a different attitude and using, for example, the pitch thrusters to be yaw thrusters is something that is not out of our wheelhouse. We've learned about these things with past spacecraft. We could put this into action. So we would have definitely given it all a fighting chance if we had lost thrusters and we're not able to get them back.
Captain Williams, with the images that we watched of you from space, the kind of resilience, the kind of, rolling your sleeves up, getting the job done, you seemed happy. The sheer fact that an 8-day mission had turned into a 9.5-month mission didn't quite reflect you were running a marathon in space, you were making records, you were gung-ho that let's do this. There had to be moments of vulnerability where, it's normal to miss family, but also that you were in space. And, you might have had a way of coming back, but was there a time which you remember that maybe you were not as upbeat as all those videos?
Oh,
seem to
I mean, we're a family up there. So obviously, there's there's times where things don't go right, or another crew member has some issue, or I have an issue, like with whatever, with a science experiment, with a bad conversation with somebody at home, or a bad conversation on the space station. But you work through those things, and that's what a family does, right? Family doesn't break apart and have big issues, or get super nervous about something. Everybody comes together and helps each other out. So, for me, of course I missed home. I really missed my mom, as a matter of fact. I lost my dad in 2020, and so my mother is older. She's in her 80s, and the big thing that was on my mind, it's just some lost time with an elderly parent, and that's really precious time. So that was the thing that was going through my head the most. Secondly, my niece and nephew, they're growing up, they're getting big, and I really wanted to spend time with them. And on that same vein, my dogs are getting older, and it's a time that they're awesome, and I would love to hang out and play with them. And of course, like my husband and my sister are always like fast individuals. I miss time with them as well, and it was unfortunate that I missed that time. But I think I mentioned before, it was pretty cool. They were all super supportive. Everybody, as much as they could be. They're like, just go and have fun. And that support allows you to press on, which is really cool. I think it's not only in this business, but other businesses, particularly when people deploy, or have to go away for business trips, or whatever the case may be. If your family is behind you, you can do such amazing things. That strength just comes right back to you.
I love that video when you came in and it was homecoming and your two
Oh,
dogs.
I
Your
know.
God, that was so cute.
They're
Is
awesome.
that the reason why you had those paw print tattoos on your
Well, it was
program?
funny, like you mentioned in the beginning, well, how would I describe myself? That's sort of why I would say an animal lover. Like, that definitely came from, my mother's side of my family a little bit more, but my father really liked our pets as well, later in life. And so, I don't know. I've always loved watching animals. I think they're really genuine. They're really pure. They don't have all the distractions, the mess that us humans do, and the pain that we go through by just in our own listening to our own heads, like you were talking about. And I think I value watching them. I value taking lessons learned from them. And that pure joy is something that we have inside of us too. We just sort of suppress it a little
Those
bit.
paw print tattoos that you have, are they your dogs?
This was a Jack Russell Terrier that I had, I got him in 2001, and I had him until 2017. So he was my old boy, but, went through a lot with me as I was training and getting ready to go to space. He traveled with me to Russia when I was training for my second space flight. So he was my little buddy. Yeah. And, the paw prints just always remind me, like when I'm running.
Yes.
Yeah, when I'm running, when I'm bicycling, those are his actual feet prints. When I'm swimming, I can see them, and it just reminds me of the good things, the really good things in life.
When you went up in space and there was so much, like I said, there was so much conversation, so much chatter. There were havans being performed in India that Sunita needs to come back home safely, astrological calculations, and this is the day, this is not the day when she should come back. You also took a bit of India with you up
Thank
in space. You took samosas, and you took a little idol of Lord Ganesha, and I know you've answered this before, and you took the Bhagavad Gita. I want to ask you a larger question on this because your colleague, Butch Wilmore as well, constantly said that he's to attend church from space every Sunday. And when you talk about scientists and astronauts, it's difficult to believe that somebody with a scientific temperament could also be religious. Are you religious,
I
Sunita?
don't know if I would say religious. I think my father would suggest it also spiritual is a little bit more appropriate. It was really awesome for me and my brother and sister to grow up in a family that was diverse in that regard. My father was Hindu, my mother is Catholic, and we grew up going to church and also learning about Hindu stories when we were young, in particular, like in the comic form when we were younger. But then having really nice spiritual discussions with my father and going to a satsang with him and things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say one religion is the way I go. I think spirituality and thinking about a little bit of an existential person, and where your place is in the universe gets, I think, even a little more uh emphasized when you're in space. And Butch said it really eloquently when he was up there. When you look out at through the window and see the earth in that manner, it changes your perspective, of course, about the planet, about the people, and how we should all live together. It also makes you wonder, like, wow, this is an amazing place. People talk about aliens, and you say talk about the billions of stars that are out there and the combination of the chemistry that allows us to live on this planet. It's pretty much of a miracle. I mean, and we don't think of it that way, but it is. And every one of us on this planet is a miracle.
Captain Williams, it's a personal question and you can choose not to answer it. But the last time you were here, there was a lot of conversation about you wanting to adopt an Indian girl. Your sister had spoken about it and it seemed that there was interest. Um, um, why didn't you go through with it, or was it something that you battled with in your head? Because the press seemed to suggest that you wanted to adopt a young girl from India.
Well, my sister did adopt 2 children from India.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So, we all had talked about it at different times. My life was a little bit complicated. Both my husband and I were professionals that moved around quite a bit, and I would say, unfortunately, we didn't have children. And I think my biggest goal in life is try to be a positive impact on kids. Probably one of the reasons I love coming and talking to kids. And for me, it really wasn't a feasible idea just because my schedule was so crazy, and I really value my parents. My husband really valued his parents as well, and I think 2 parents in the household with children is a really good idea just to provide a really awesome, role models. I mean, those are my role models. I talked about it today at the festival. And so it's we didn't find it a feasible idea. My sister is really amazing and brave and took it on head on, and so and our family has gained so much from my niece and nephew who have come from Orissa and that area, and it's just wonderful to have them as part of the family. So any kid you can make a positive impact on, I think is
Thank you for taking that question,
yeah.
because it's a personal question. I don't know if I should
No
have
problem.
asked you.
Yeah.
But I want to you somebody who speaks all the time in all your interviews. You have spoken about team, about coming in together, making things happen. And something which a lot of us teared up on in India was the hug that you gave 2 days ago to Kalpana Chawla's mother.
Yeah.
And after that, she spoke to the press and she says in Hindi, in chaste Punjabi
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
she says, वो तो 3 महीने मेरे साथ रह के गई थी. That when Kalpana Chawla died in that tragic crash, on board in 2003, that you went and stayed with her family for 3 months. And she spoke about Sunita used to come at 9 in the morning and leave at 10 at night. She's like my daughter. Is it standing up for a friend, being a team player? What was it?
Oh, that's what a compliment. She's amazing. So their whole family is amazing, and then a very, very, of course, unexpected and tough time, right? So, just how to try and help people make sense out of the whole situation. Of course, she hadn't lived in India for quite some time, and I was lucky enough to be Kalpana's friend, and so just to share stories about her in the United States and hear stories about her in her lifetime in India. We just spent a lot of time together, and I think it was a little cathartic to just reminisce and talk about her and just relive her life, because it was absolutely a life worth living, and what she was represented and what she wanted in space is something that we in our office absolutely felt like we had to continue along with the rest of the Columbia crew. We weren't going to say like, okay, we're done. We're not flying anymore. We're going to explore in their honor. That's why they were flying in space. All of them were explorers, and we just wanted to continue that. So sharing that ideas, because that is a little bit different than a mother and a daughter having a conversation, but sharing, her perspectives and how the astronaut office wanted to continue their legacy, I think was really important. So I wanted to spend the time with them to make sure they understood that. And for me, it was good just to get to know them. They're just an amazing family. And I'm still in touch with a lot of them. So it's really great.
They have the fondest
Yeah.
thing to say, both
Yeah.
her sister and her mother,
Yeah.
about you. Um, you've brushed aside a lot of. There was a lot of press at that point of time that Butch and Sunny are stranded in space. Will they come back? But there was politics, there was press around
Right.
it. But there was a larger concern where health implications are
Yeah.
concerned. There's an emotional part of it, but there is the physical part of it. Zero gravity, there's bone density loss. You spoke about muscle loss. You guys were training for it,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But
Yep.
to stay for 9.5 months, I want to ask you, Captain William, today, is there any ramification on your health of staying in space for 9.5 months?
I mean, long-term effects, I don't know yet, that we do a long-term study. And so I will go back to Johnson Space Center every year for my birthday and get a myriad of tests done. One, just for our own health and just so we get qualifications for flying or whatever that it is. But it's also for the scientists there to collect data. So we know because we haven't been flying astronauts in space actually that long. When you look, and the number of them it's not that huge when you look at scientific and numbers of data points. And so they continually want to do that. On the short term, though, I came back fine. And Butch and I both like to work out. We've had people who've been up there longer than us. Frank Rubio was up there for over a year, 370 days. Other folks have been up there 9, 10 months. So we all know that it's important for bone density and muscle mass to work out. And so it's one of the things that we do all the time. And both of us came back in pretty good health. Of course, my hair got gray and some people asked the question. I'm like, well, do you know how old I am? Also, that is it sort of goes with the territory. Maybe there were some male reporters. I don't know. But it was sort of funny. It happens, right? And a lot of us women at an older age here, we actually dye our hair, right? So anyway, it to me it was just sort of funny in that regard. And of course we don't have a tan. So, launched with we were training in Florida. I was pretty tan when I launched. And so as you're in space for a little while, you're going to, of course, get a little bit whiter skin. And so I think people blew that a little bit out of proportion. So I felt really good up there. I was eating really well. My weight was maintained the whole time. I felt like I was getting stronger.
You ran a marathon.
I didn't run a marathon this time. I ran a triathlon or I ran a 10 miler. And I'm 60 years old, so I mean, it's not so bad. I challenged actually the people in my gym. I said when I left, I said, when you're 60, I hope you're all working out like this. And then when I came back, I worked out with them again, and I did pretty darn good. So I think I did well, and I think the media just sort of blew that out of proportion, not understanding exactly what happens when you go to space.
But Captain Williams, speaking about the hair, you had quite a few good hair days.
Yes,
In space, didn't you? Something which the President of the United States also noticed.
yes. The lady with the crazy hair, I think something like that.
Yeah, the lady with the crazy hair, we are bringing you back.
It was nice.
So, is it a reason that you don't tie your hair, or is it just that you want to wear your hair high that day?
No, it's an enclosed environment. I never even asked the question whether or not I could or could not. I didn't even go there because that would cause a lot of people to have to do a lot of work. It's an enclosed environment. There's chemicals with dyeing your hair and stuff like that. I didn't want to cause anybody to have any problems, including myself, in this enclosed environment. So I just let it go. And that's okay.
Captain Williams, I'm going to ask you the last three questions. And one of them is that with whatever your image, your persona is brave, is formidable, is courageous, it's remarkable. What scares Captain Sunita Williams? Do you fear anything at all? Because it doesn't seem that you fear anything.
Oh,
You're fearless.
I'm a normal human being, and there's things, of course, like when I'm hiking, I live out in the wilderness, and when I'm hiking, yeah, I'm conscientious of I'm in somebody else's house, this wild animal, so I'm in their house. I have to be respectful. I wouldn't say I was necessarily scared, but I am conscientious and aware of the wild animals that are out there, right, and respectful of them. So that's one thing. You know. I don't know what else I'm afraid of. For a long time, I was afraid of when it's too dark, so, uh, when I was a kid, and I still have that a little bit. It's always nice to be home with another person versus by yourself when you're alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you always listen to the cracks and the noises in your house or in your spacecraft or whatever, if you're alone or by yourself at some period of time. So it's always nice to have somebody else around that's a little more comforting. I wouldn't necessarily say I was super scared, but it's uncomfortable. Those things are uncomfortable. So it's nice to have my husband around.
Well, it's good to know that the dark scares Captain Sunita Williams. But last two questions. India, ISRO. Group Captain Shukla just about missed you. And he
know,
came in and he
unfortunate,
came
yeah.
in. We have Gaganyaan happening.
Yeah.
How are you looking at India's space journey?
I'm really excited. It's really awesome. I hear about so much that's going on here. This is the time. This is a golden age of space exploration for everybody around the planet. And it's time to put all the technology that we've worked on, in particular here in India, put that all to good use in a way for exploration and peaceful exploration of space. And so I'm psyched. Where India's pressing on. The U.S. is trying to be a integrator and a leader as we go and explore a little bit further from Earth, going back to the moon sustainably. And it's awesome to see the cooperation between India and the United States. I think that is great, and it's going to help us together go even further. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm actually going to Vikram Sarabhai station in another couple days, and I'm really excited to see firsthand. I've never been to ISRO or Indian space areas, so I'm excited to see what's happening.
No, we look forward, and I'm sure India can gain a lot from you and your knowledge, and with what you've accomplished. And now that you're retired, maybe you know, there could be a collaboration of sorts. But I'll ask you my one final question, Captain Williams. When you were in space, when you looked down, and I know there's no favorite country, but when you looked down in India, what did you see?
Oh, I saw the beauty of my father's homeland. I mean, it's awesome. That I described a couple different ways where the spacecraft could come different directions over India. Coming down from the Himalayas and right across India that way. It's almost like you can see sometimes the fog is sort of like a rolling wave coming out of the Himalayas over the country until you get to the coastline, going east to northwest to southeast. Another direction of coming in, particularly at night, which was fascinating, is coming just from the east to the west over the country, and you could see the fishing boats all illuminated, sort of like a beacon as you guide your way toward Mumbai, and then see the lights of the pearl necklace lights, and then continuing across India at night. For for me, it was a little bit of a difference from previous flights where it's so interconnected. Like you can see the cities all lit up, and then you could see the connections between them. It almost looks like a nerve pattern of, things my father used to look at, under the microscope. So very, very amazing. It reminded me, of course, a lot about my family that came from here, and the deep history that's here at this country.
Any regrets when you look back at 27 years?
No.
They're going to end in that.
Yeah, I really don't have any regrets. There's a lot of in everyone's life, there's a lot of like, oh, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But like when you step back and look at things that everybody has accomplishments, I hope everybody feels the same way I do. I feel very blessed and very lucky and very supported and loved.
Well, we feel very blessed that today you sat with us and had this conversation. Captain Sunita Williams from We at India Today, we wish you blue skies in the next chapter
Thank you
that
so
you're
much.
embarking on. And I hope you have a fabulous retirement. And I hope we can get something out of it. Is there anything that you're reading that you recommend right now to our. Do you read?
Oh, of course I read. Yeah, yeah.
Is there something that
Here at the literature
Hi,
festival.
exactly. So, is there a book that you recommend before we let you in?
I am reading a book from Sadhguru, which is really interesting, but it's taking me a little while because I want to savor it. I don't want to like read through it and then be done with it, right? That's not how I read those books, right? So I'm reading it a little bit and just sort of picking up the pieces and parts. It's really awesome.
We wish you well. We wish you good health. And we hope to see you back in India. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much.